As business owners, entrepreneurs, family men, it's difficult for us to find the time to put together projects like these. Even though it's something we really want to do, unfortunately, taking care of the things we have to take care of comes first. However, because of viewer support for people like you, we're able to continue doing this. Please consider joining our Patreon and supporting the Burn and Return podcast. You're listening to Burn and Return, a weekly 1-hour podcast covering news from the agricultural and turfgrass industries. What is up, everybody? Welcome to this week's episode of Burn and Return. I'm going to be your host. My name is Matt Martin, and joined alongside me here we have Mr. Ryan DeMay and Mr. Ray Ito themselves. Gentlemen, how are you doing on this fine, glorious evening?
Well, I'm trying to compose myself here because of all the random ass stuff that we were talking about in the pre-show. And I don't want the folks that watch this on YouTube or listen to the podcast later on that aren't Patreon members to wonder, why are these guys seem like they're on drugs, which we're not. There's nobody here that's under the influence of anything right now. However, it took me a minute to come back down. So, Ray, hopefully you're centered, right? You're having a Zen-like moment, and we can proceed here with this evening.
Absolutely. I mean, nobody crashed into me at 30 miles per hour, so I think I'm pretty well composed today.
By the way, Ray, have you seen the video that that one guy found on the internet somewhere?
Yeah. Isn't that shitty?
That was unbelievable. But I have to say, your whole physical structure and demeanor as you were walking back to the car that hit you was everything I needed to see. You could feel the disgust emanating from you as with every step, and you had your hand on your side in just the most perfect position of just it was beautiful, right? It was absolutely beautiful. I hate it happened to you, but that moment captured so much.
I was honestly worried for that person because my first impression, and this is just me being me, I thought the dude had a heart attack, and that's why he was unable to stop, and he just crashed into me at high speed. I thought he had a heart attack or a stroke, and that's how come he lost control of his vehicle. But come to find out, no, just somebody doing something absolutely stupid.
I hate it.
Absolutely, just damn stupid. I mean, because I'm walking up to that car. I'm thinking, oh boy, I hope I don't find a guy that's like, clutching his chest or, convulsing or something. No. It's a guy that is just, he's doing something stupid and now it's caught up to him. Shit.
Hey, what today I learned, if you want Ray to give you mouth to mouth, it's going to be extra. It's going to cost you extra.
Speaking of mouth to mouth, we are going to be giving mouth to mouth live and in person on October 21st in Louisville, Kentucky. For those of you that were awesome enough to be able to afford us the opportunity to do this, we want to thank each and every one of you because it's going to be a ton of fun. And if you don't know what we're talking about, we are having a live show at Louisville, Kentucky in a top secret location just to make sure none of it gets leaked out beforehand. But it is going to be an off radar, no recording, live show at the GIE. The three of us in person, touchable, minus Ray. Ray will be there via coconut Wi-Fi, which is good enough for all intents and purposes. And we are so excited about it. So for everybody that bought a ticket,
hey, Matt,
and yes,
Matt, I definitely ordered a cardboard cutout for Ray. So we've got that coming.
And we had Ray measure himself to the millimeter, so it's actually 2 size, right?
So
1-to-1
he will
ratio.
be touchable. He will be touchable. There, you can lick his face in all the other strange things.
We're
that
just
you
going to wheel
degenerates
the
like to do.
monitor into the face hole.
Yeah, see,
Are we still doing that?
Heck yeah.
That's gonna be awesome. Yes, I
so
like it.
for everybody that supported us to be able to do that, thank you so much. We're not doing it to make money. It is definitely a nonprofit thing, but we wanted to be able to do this. We wanted to be able to provide some in-person entertainment, and I think that is just going to be an absolute wild time with wild ass stories that we can talk about for days, and that to me is what makes it all worthwhile, right? Beyond that, gentlemen, let us jump into the headlines.
Nothing to fear here. This is just the news.
Coming out of Oregon State, we have some groundbreaking research here on controlling microdokium patch with non-traditional fungicides. And this is going to be Clint Maddox, and pay attention because he's also going to be coming up later in the show as well. Brian McDonald, Emily Braithwaite. Did I say that right? Braithwaite, and Alec
I'm gonna go Braithwaite.
Kowalewski. I don't know how to say that. And
Kowalewski.
I struggle with Polish names. It gets real confusing for my rash ass brain. And this is out of Oregon State University. Go Beavers. Key takeaways: microdokium patch can be suppressed using a rotation of mineral oil, phos acid, and elemental sulfur to achieve control that is equivalent to traditional fungicides. Applying iron sulfate heptahydrate tank mix with phos acid every 2 weeks leads to thinning of annual bluegrass putting greens. However, this tank mix may be a viable option for other areas of the golf course, such as tees and fairways, or where pesticide restrictions may occur. It is recommended to apply no more than 1.5 pounds elemental sulfur per 1,000 square feet per year on annual bluegrass putting greens. I guess that was also unpacked during this because of an increased risk of anthracnose in the summer. Interesting. And I've got to say, if there's one thing that I really appreciate about this push for natural alternatives to things is revisiting and rehashing out the potential of the tools that we are currently using. Now, I got to say, mineral oil isn't necessarily on the top of everybody's toolbox of things they're spraying, right? I can't say I ever kept mineral oil in my tank, just for grins and giggles or whatever. Well, I guess you could say like a highly refined mineral oil for like a hort oil or something. There's been I've kept that in a tank from time to time. But here, we're seeing some interesting efficacy out of a combination of that and spraying phosphorus acid, which is a precursor chemical to phosphite. This is not phosphoric acid, which is your typical precursor to fertilizer phosphorus. This is phosphorus acid and elemental sulfur and ferrous sulfate. Interesting, and pretty impressive. I didn't dive. I read through this, and I'm going to have to read it like 6 times to make sense of all of it because it goes into pretty great deep depth here. But I don't know, gentlemen, what are your takeaways from it?
Okay.
Go for it, Ray.
You
You want to. I can see it.
here's my thought on it. To me, this is like a butt ton of applications, to do the same thing. This is like a lot of applications to accomplish the same thing, and this is, I guess, the pitfalls of the non-modern, non-traditional fungicides, because sulfur goes back centuries.
Mm-hmm.
Iron sulfate goes back centuries, and port oil or refined petroleum, mineral oil, goes back to at least the 1700s, 1800s. So this is all old stuff. And speaking to that, I literally come from a time when there were no really good systemic long-lasting fungicides, because in the early 1990s, I didn't really have azoxystrobin or propiconazole, and even what was available back then, benlate, benlate was not known for being particularly long lasting. So it was a kind of a hit and run kind of a thing. It would be there, but then you don't get 28 days of control out of it. You
You
at
remember
best you
when
only got
Banner Max
14.
came on the market and it was just I remember Banner Max just the Cadillac, right? I mean, it was held in
Mhm.
such high esteem, a price tag to follow suit. And I mean, it was the pinnacle of what you could apply in terms of fungicide, right? It was it
Actually,
was
no.
Banner Max.
You know you know what the heavy hitter was, but it was one of those high risk, high reward type applications.
What's that?
Peloton. Peloton.
Balaton. I mean, the
Oh
Balaton
yeah.
Okay,
was a great one too.
yeah, because Peloton, because if I had to compare Peloton versus propiconazole, what I get out of Peloton is extremely long residual activity, especially when you've gone into the higher rate ranges, but you also run the risk of stunting your turf for a prolonged period of time as well.
Well, my point of bringing that up was, that you know, I, at the time, right? And at least for me in lawn care, Banner Max that was the apex of what you could do in terms of fungicides, right? Now, Banner or propiconazole is just sprayed so willy-nilly without a second thought. It's as
Mm.
cheap as they come in terms of cost per application, cost per thousand. And there are people out there that are like, well, it's October 15th. I know I'm out of my disease window, but I got a little bit left. I'm just going to go ahead and put it in the tank, get it down in case, I don't know, maybe some rust or something happens. I don't know. Better safe than be sorry. And I see a lot of that. I see a lot of that. Maybe not necessarily on the pro side of things, but especially in the homeowner circuit, right? I mean, it's just the number of emails I get to the grass factor right now of people asking like, "Hey, my seed, I've cut it 3 times now. Should I go ahead and start applying fungicide to it?" I'm like, "What? Why would you be doing where
Why?
are you?" "I'm in upstate New York." I'm like, "What? No, absolutely not. Should you not be doing that?" Or if it's not that, it's should is it safe to apply bifenthrin? And my point is that if we could still hold fertilizers in high esteem, fungicides in high esteem, high regard, and revert back to some of these types of management practices that are going to have less impact on the efficacy of what is our gold standard in terms of fungicides, right? Get people off of the gold standard, save those for gold standard required situations, and allow people to f around and find out with phos acid, elemental sulfur, ferrous sulfate, kind of sort of thing. You see where I'm going
Actually,
with that?
I see where you're going at. And to this day, I lament the loss of mancozeb and thiram because those were two extremely effective contact fungicides, multi-site contact fungicides, to where my go-to, if I just had mild rust or mild leaf spot or mild powdery mildew, is I'd go hit it with 8 ounces of mancozeb per 1,000 square foot, and I consider that an application that is extremely low risk as far as fungicide resistant.
I use a lot of
So,
Thyram on the golf course, Ray. A lot.
mhm, yeah, and
Great on leaf spot.
because I'm going to show my age because I still remember the DuPont Tersan,
Mm.
WP, and Ryan. The ideal mix, if you do actually have severe disease pressure, was Tersan WP plus Tersan 1991.
Oh yeah, the old Chitco 1991.
No, that
That was the
1991
precursor
was
to.
no
That was the
1991 was
precursor to.
Benamil, Benlate, Benlate.
Uh,
That was turf label Benlate.
yeah.
Y'all are old.
Yeah. I'm old.
there's yeah, there's a lot of stuff floating around the old chem barn back when I started in '96, Matt. Let me tell you what, a lot of inventory to use up. Um, overall, this is the kind of stuff that they're pumping out. I mean, I think Oregon State's a strong program now in terms of research, and we'll talk a little bit more about them here later in the show. But to the extent that there is, and they mentioned it here in the article, right, that they're especially out there, right, they're running into extreme resistance issues on, some of, the gold standards, or not necessarily gold standards, but at least old standbys, right, that were really, really effective on this pathogen. And it's certainly something where, they have probably some of the higher pressure, winter long pressure, fall through winter, if anywhere in the country. But certainly their climate mimics others, right? Where you talk about Europe and the UK and things like that, where very limited, right, in the types of products that they have available to them. And so that's what they're trying to investigate, is that the reach of what this research will hopefully bear out extends far beyond just Corvallis, Oregon, right? This is far reaching, and it hopefully shows that we still have some tools in the arsenal, to what Matt's saying, that we can rotate through and work through. I think the Civitas and the horde oil, it definitely has a place in this particular setting, in this pathogen. I've seen it work very well in that case. And the phosphorus acid, I mean, Matt did a whole video on that, and we can get into this all day long, but with both of those products, right, that there is some evidence, truth, that there is some SAR, there is some systemic acquired resistance, right, and some plant defense activators, right, some elicitors that come into play there. So whether they'll figure that out and tease that out through the study and be able to figure it out, who knows? But good to see people trying something different, right, and not just taking the old protocol from the big chemical companies, right, Ray, and just sticking it out there and throwing it down.
So you're telling me I should put azoxystrobin on my Pythium? Is that what I'm picking up? What you're putting down there? I'm just kidding.
Links in description below.
Links in the description.
Yes, please. That's facetious sarcasm alert.
Yeah. Do not apply azoxystrobin to your Pythium and expect anything to come out of it. I've got some really, really uplifting news here, gentlemen. Potash prices and urea prices, F it, all fertilizer prices are on a significant uptrend. Two fertilizers saw significant price increases in the third week of September of 2021. A number of other fertilizer prices also moved higher, although they didn't meet the 5% threshold, which DTN considers significant. Potash was 10% higher than last month. The fertilizer had an average price of $6.25 a ton. Urea was 5% more expensive than the prior year. The nitrogen fertilizer had an average price of $5.85 a ton. The average retail price for MAP was 4% more expensive than last month at $7.86 a ton. Now, you may be seeing these prices and think, oh, that's not too bad. That's $5.85 a ton. That's $12, $13, $14 a bag of urea. Well, hang on. This is if you have a commodity contract where you're buying this in 100-ton blocks, and that doesn't include the port fee, the dock fee, logistics of where it's going, or packaging, right? So realistically, between the time it touches the trader's hands, the port fee, dock fee, packaging, all that fun stuff, you can add, an easy $400 a ton to this. So if you are buying in bulk as a regular applicator that's going to be buying truckloads of fertilizer at a time, chances are your urea prices are going to be somewhere up around $985 a ton. That's almost $25 a bag. And that is where, gentlemen, we're starting to creep up closer and closer, ever so slightly, to the inanity that was the 2008-2009 fertilizer price crash, I will call it. And by crash, I mean total explosion. I'll give you another example. I had somebody message me the other day, and I will read this and protect his identity. And he said his quote on what used to be a $10 bag of fertilizer last year is $15 today, and he's being quoted $25 buying it this upcoming spring. And this is someone who deals in Truckloads per round is now being quoted from what used to be $10, $25 a bag. So this is someone who's using in excess of 100 tons a season. Big numbers guy, big lawn care company, and even they are not protected. So holy
I think
shit for the lawn care folks
I
out
think
there.
no, I think the bigger guys, because their margins and their profit margin is so low to begin with, I think the price increases hurt them the most because
Oh yeah.
because here's what I've done. Uh, believe it or not, I've kind of grandfathered in some people that I've worked for years, and that I'm not going to raise prices on them. But as of 2020, any any new work, uh, I started pricing at 2020 prices. And to give you the idea, the 2020 prices are literally a 30% increase over my pre-2020 prices.
Yeah, it's we're in a weird time. And I'm interested to see because a lot of the large lawn care companies play into a lot of their price structure economy of scale, right? Where
Mhm.
it's okay to operate at a 20-25% margin because where you may be bringing this in across 5,000 customers in lieu of requiring a 70 or 80% margin across 200 customers, right? In order to make enough money to survive. So this is exactly the large guys that are playing economy of scale are in for it right now.
Yeah, because you can only artificially hold those prices so low for so long, right? Like I've had a bunch of people call me in the last month or so, hearing about this stuff and asking, "Hey, man, like I've got these contracts right as a sub where I'm only able to get 120 to 140 bucks an acre, including my labor, right?" And you do the math on that, like it's not even not sustainable, right? It is in the basement in terms of not only just profitability, but you staying in business, right? So, um, I think a lot of what we're going to see is now setting expectations, right? Because you start talking about if we're just talking about lawn care for right now, um, is setting expectations now that 2022 is going to be a lot different than any year that we've experienced, right? In terms of prepping your customers for what would be probably a pretty substantial price increase. And so, with that being said, is like, well, what can I do, right? What can I do to control that? And I think a lot of our content coming into the first of the year is probably going to center around that, like what we did last year in the early spring with running soil tests and figuring stuff out. It is in your absolute best interest, right, to start kind of parsing out those accounts of good, better, best, right? And maybe trying to make a little bit more detailed of these buckets to put them in, of what kind of fertility program you're going to put these things under. And when I talk about good, better, best, I'm saying that the best lawns you might be able to scale back on a little bit, right? And some of the worst lawns, you better be darn sure what you're putting down is going to be not only the most effective, but the most in terms of turf performance, but cost effective too, right? So you're going to separate the men from the boys, I think, here real quick, gentlemen.
Well, with that, we got to continue moving on here, but we've still got more headlines to jump into because it's just too hot of topics to overlook. The EPA stopped short of promising dicamba use in 2022. Administrator Reagan says EPA is evaluating the new dicamba labeling requirements implemented in 2020 as reports of dicamba incidences continue into the 2021 growing season. The EPA and Administrator Michael Reagan says the EPA is extremely concerned about reports of new dicamba incidences and indicated further changes for growers could be coming in the 2022 growing season if the analysis warrants adjustments. Growers are currently planning for the 2022 season, and we expect dicamba tolerant soybeans and cotton to remain a significant part of the total soybean and cotton acres planted. Dicamba tolerant acres total between 50 and 60 million acres in 2021,
Oh,
with additional acreage anticipated next year. We're still receiving and
Wow.
analyzing new incident information and working very closely with state regulators to understand the conditions on the ground. The EPA is extremely concerned about these reports and is taking steps to better understand the nature and the severity of these incidents in order to assess the sufficiency of mitigation in the 2020 decision and, if necessary, take appropriate regulatory action. And it goes on. One of the later quotes here, I will close this out with. It says, I think we can all agree here at the NASDA that we'd much rather have crop technology go through proper regulatory protocols than be challenged in court. We need to make sure that we work with you and not let juries decide what sort of crop technology for American farmers wins. I thought that was the most level-headed statement about the whole thing, because when you are reliant upon a jury of your peers to determine your crop production technology, you run into situations a la glyphosate, where a jury of peers is handing out stroking checks for billions of dollars right now.
it's with respect to dicamba, right? The incidence of what has taken place in the last few years, right? Is it alarming? Yeah. Is it something that rather than just saying no, that we need to get a better handle on best management practices, how this is occurring, right? All the whys, and truly understand it, right? I think this is the same thing where, like what you said, I thought it was a great point in the article about the jury piece, where we move so quick on glyphosate and so far against what the science told us that we've passed the point of no return. Like, there is no coming back. I don't see it, and it's getting awful close here with dicamba, right? Don't you think?
I think so. And the problem with dicamba use in crops is that the dicamba use is literally happening when the crop cycles of susceptible nearby crops are such that those susceptible crops are at a vulnerable stage, because previously, guess what the most common use of dicamba was? Pre-dicamba tolerant soybeans and cotton. Most frequent use was for early spring or late fall weed control on unplanted or fallow land that is not in crop. I mean, to spray this over the top of, an emerged crop I consider that actually a high risk, application. And to be honest with you guys, I literally had misgivings from the outset regarding glyphosate tolerant crops, 2,4-D tolerant crops, and dicamba tolerant crops. I had severe misgivings. And the reason for my misgivings were this exact issue of the off-target effects on nearby non-tolerant crops. I just thought, what could possibly go wrong if you're spraying 1,000 acres with Clarity, which is a 4-pound per gallon dicamba formulation, over 1,000 acres. And here's how they're applying this, Matt. Guess what your typical spray volume is on large acreage?
4 to 8 gallons an acre.
Yep. I mean, 4 to 8 gallons per acre. So you know what that means in practical terms? You've
You're
got that
effectively
brown
dripping concentrate.
Yeah, because imagine running your your boom rig at like 10 to 15 miles per hour, and your T-jet nozzle on there is sized to about 0.3 with a 0.3 or a 0.2 orifice. Okay, that's how you get that 5 gallon per acre application rate. And talk about anything goes wrong, the wind shifts. Oh, neighbor Jim's orchard is just smoked. Or you have an inversion. Yikes! You know, Betty's non-tolerant cotton field is now smoked. And in fact, in the first year of that dicamba tolerant trait being released, didn't somebody like kill their neighbor over that
Yeah,
or
yeah,
something
they
like that?
did.
There was a case where he got so pissed that he literally went over and he killed his neighbor. And I get it
Death.
because when you
Death.
see when you see your entire annual income curling up and dropping its leaves, I honestly don't know what else to think, because how do you recover from that? How do you recover from that? It's hard, Ryan.
I
It's
just
super
go.
hard.
I just go online and look for dicamba resistant Arden 15 to overseed with and start over.
Ooh.
Zinger. Zinger.
Yikes.
Ow.
Somebody, hey, look at the search results here coming up, right? It's going to be trending on Google by the end of this week.
Dicamba resistant Arden 15 discovered in Georgia.
Daggum. They did it.
Yep. But
that's how they say it
here's
down there
what
in
they
Georgia.
Yeah, but then here's what that can mean for us in the turf industry. In fact, it already happened in a way, because remember now, Bayer pulled dicamba from their Celsius formulation. And I think that was in response to the upcoming pressure on dicamba, period. And the other place where I see this happening is, I can imagine a day when your battleship or your momentum or even your speed zone doesn't have dicamba in it anymore. I can imagine
I
it,
believe it.
but
I think
Go ahead,
that's the
Ryan.
first. I think that's the first leg that they'll chop out, right? That they'll start there and work their way
Mhm.
up to kind of the top of the pyramid, which is what you were talking about before with straight dicamba spraying, at the ag level. So you'll see this just the same as you have with everything else, is this erosion, right, of that registration until there's basically nothing left, and for at least in turf, and it just goes away. So
It just goes. And there's that new technology that I know Dow Cortiva is working on. But Dow Cortiva runs the risk of making another Imprellis,
hey,
because
it worked.
that broadleaf herbicide technology is highly active and relatively persistent in soil. And I'm talking about that haloxyphene, technology.
Yeah, haloxyphene methyl.
Yeah, the
Yeah,
haloxyphene methyl.
if nobody's watched, it's kind of interesting to hear. There's a show on YouTube called The Podfather, and it's a spinoff of Corn Wars. Shout out to Chris Elms for turning me on to that, because I love watching it. But the Podfathers is all about their high yield soybean gas, right? And one of them was talking about not going out with dicamba, not spraying dicamba because of still some lingering issues, maybe, and he didn't want to make anybody around him angry. And I thought that was pretty interesting, that we got a guy right here in Arkansas, which is the heart of uh, I think that's where it really kicked off. The whole issues with dicamba in general started in Arkansas, if I recall correctly. And
Hmm.
they were like, yeah, I don't know. I would think we're going to forego a little dicamba spraying right now.
Yeah. Well,
So much for the podfathers.
yeah, because here's my, here's my impression of it is that, Matt, how do you control spray drift when your application parameters are 5 to 10 gallons per acre and your rig is running at such a high speed?
Yeah, you can't.
How do
It's
how do you
not
keep that on
possible.
the ground? How do you keep that on the ground? Because I know for myself, that is like the main reason why I shy away from anything under the half a gallon per 1,000 square foot. That's my exact reason for not going under that, because I don't want to be that person that MSM and dicamba the entire neighborhood.
Well, maybe one day if there's a technology that allows us to bring, the bulk density of these solutions up to, like, 30, 40 pounds a gallon kind of sort of thing, and help eliminate that. But until then, we're just kind of at the mercy of what we can do with
Physics, yeah,
our tool
basic
selection.
physics.
Yeah,
Yeah,
exactly.
basic
Well,
physics.
before we move on to this week's burns, we're going to tap into this week's sponsors. We've got two sponsors this week. Number one is going to be Field Source Ohio. Mr. DeMay, just give us some highlights right here. Just a quick throat punch to get people coughing and hacking so they understand the importance of what it means to be aligned with a consultant like Field Source Ohio.
Well, I want to know if you want to do it right, right? Got to do it right from the start, because number one, we can do a lot of work out there in a construction site in a span of a few weeks. It'll cause, years and years of delay. And so, the thing we always like to say with Field Source is if we do better, everybody else will do better, right? Your kids, your coaches, your athletic directors, your superintendents, your park directors, your mayors, elected officials, all that good stuff. And so, we just want to give everybody the number one best playing surface that they can possibly get using science-based, evidence-based, research-backed protocols, programs, right? To get that all done. So with that, I'm just going to say, if you haven't checked out Field Source Ohio, go check us out, www.fieldsourceohio.com. Check us out on Twitter. Yeah, there you go. Yeah, science. Also on the Tweeter machine there at Field Source Ohio, and check out our most recent projects.
And we also have Subvert Nutritionals. Subvert Nutritionals, a division of Renovo now. That is official. Thanks to our lawyer out there, Lee. What's up, Lee? For getting this taken care of. Subvert Nutritionals is going to be a line of liquid fertilizers that's going to range everything from our root promoting peptides to just traditional inputs that you may use out there, and then a couple of pre-formulated blends if you don't feel like being a mad chemist and lining everything up yourself. Beyond that, we also have a line of nutrition for cannabis and hemp. And if you're interested in learning more about that, you can head on over to the contact page, subvertnpk.com, and reach out, and someone with our company will be able to help you out with whatever your grow project may be. Indoor, outdoor, container, hydroponic, you name it, we cover it. Gentlemen, let's check out this week's birds. Sheila, that was not part of the Utah conversation we were having earlier. I'll tell you that right now. That is not number one in Utah.
No, I told you
Number
screaming
one,
a towel.
I hope.
I'll tell you who made me screaming in a towel, and it's this old man who is going to jail for pouring weed killer on a golf green at night. I'd say when he gets to prison, he'll be chewing all on that towel, as a matter of fact. A man was arrested after cameras caught him wearing a mask and pouring weed killer on a green at a golf club where he'd been banned. And as a matter of fact, Uh, we'll just read through the headline here. Glenn Newton, 55, attempted to get revenge on a golf club that had banned him by vandalizing one of the greens in the middle of the night. Newton had been kicked off the Wooley Park Golf Club in Wakeville, West Yorkshire, in 2020 after having issues with the club's owners. According to testimony given and video presented in Leeds Crown Court, Newton, wearing a mask, was caught both on camera as well as by a groundskeeper, John Rowbottom, dousing the green on the third hole with liquid glyphosate. When confronted while committing the act after Rowbottom spotted him on a security camera, the disgruntled golfer attempted to flee, but slipped and fell into the path of the groundskeeper's vehicle. From there, Rowbottom chased Newton down on foot, removed his mask a la Scooby-Dooby-Doo, all while filming everything with his camera phone. He had been a member with us for 6 or 7 years, and he was a giant angry bully, said Philip Rowbottom. Turns out he had been doing it for a while. There had been multiple attacks against the green. If you slow down J-Ping, you will see an image of the golf green there with its damage. There you go, right there in the center. There you can see where old boy had it in a watering can and just went willy-nilly on this. Well, the courts did not like it, and believe it or not, they said, "Guess what? Guess what? You're going to jail for 3 months in order to pay a 10,000 pound compensation. Thank you, sir. You may F off."
Just
that makes me feel
10,000.
good.
Just 10,000. Oh, I mean that's small money, because let me translate that to you. That is only $20,000 US. That's only about
I just did the math.
$20,000
$13,536. It's still
dollar strong
paltry
right now, boys. The dollar's strong.
Yeah, but then I'm just saying that for killing golf greens, that is just like getting off easy. I mean, that's just getting off easy. I mean,
well, Ray in prison, he's going to get off pretty easy too. I mean, several minutes maybe. I mean, how long are you allowed to be in the showers these days in minimum security? I'm not sure.
I don't know, Ryan, but I'm just saying.
I broke Ray. I did it.
He ran out of words. Ray was like, "I don't know where to go from here." As a matter of fact,
yeah, because remember now, I'm a good guy. I'm innocent, so it's like,
hey.
But then anyway,
you keep playing the victim with Sheila. We get it. Go on.
But that is just small money for the kind of damage that person created, and my goodness, how lenient, because I call that felony criminal property damage. Okay, that's what I call it, because what does bent sod go for?
Oh, over there, I have
money.
no idea. I have no idea.
A shit ton of money. And besides that, how long are those greens going to be out of play while they fix his, drawing dicks in the green with a can of glyphosate? It's going to be a while. I mean, those greens are going to be out of play for quite a while. So, you know what?
Go back to that
Mr.
picture
Newton,
real quick, J-Ping. Keep going.
it was.
What about him? What do you want to tell him?
One of the silliest damn. I mean, you look at this. Look at this.
What do you want to tell him, Ray? What do you want to tell him, Mr. Newton?
You know what?
Give it to him.
You know what, Mr. Newton? You just are like top 10 assholes of the year. I mean,
I'll put him up there.
And you're just one of the top 10.
I mean, this is every greenskeeper's dreams to catch somebody doing this, right? And
that's the best part.
I mean,
Fool got caught, and
because he kept going back like an idiot, right? That's the thing. Yeah. This guy's like a serial killer. Like it wasn't enough of a rush from the first 3 times, right? Professor thought, You know what? Wait, how? Well, I don't know. I can't do a hick English accent, but I'm gonna assume he's like an old boy. He's like, I'm gonna go back there. I'm gonna get him again, right? Like
Hmm.
just that's what did him in, Ray. That's what did him in. But you know what? I can't imagine how much restraint it probably took from that greenskeeper to not just take care
Run
of it
his
right
ass
there.
over.
Not
Just run
kill
his
him,
ass
not
over and then
anything, not anything
eh,
like that. But
eh,
wait a few
yeah,
minutes before
run
you
his
call the
ass over
cops.
and plant him under a tree
With
and plant his
that,
ass under.
speaking of planting, being planted under a trees, this next topic here, we're going to be a better gardener, reading and beating the weeds without toxins. And I want to go ahead and preface this real quick. If you'll see, this is scripted here by Thomas Christopher. And you can learn more about him at thomaschristophergardens.com. And I'll highlight for you. He is a graduate of the New York Botanical Gardens School of Professional Horticulture. And he is 100% a gigantic fanboy of Paul Tukey. And if you don't know who Paul Tukey is, welcome to the wormhole of wormholes of just absolute organic. We'll start off here. Weeds, those aggressive, irrepressible pests, are the most persistent and annoying problem of lawn care. Surely that's why Paul Tukey, in his classic guide, The Organic Lawn Care Manual, labeled his organic method for their management with the acronym RILE: relax, identify, listen, and eradicate. Weed control is a matter of chemical warfare for the typical home greenskeeper, or of spreading large sacks of toxic materials across the lawn. My heart rate is increasing, my blood pressure is increasing right here. And the reason, and he goes into further of taking you through exactly how to implement Paul Tukey's RILE acronym here. And it begins with relax. If you have less than 10% of weeds, don't even worry about it. You're good. That's as good as you can possibly get. And then he moves all the way through to eradicate. And for instance, one of his methodologies for eradicate is research at Cornell University has found that a series of overseeding treatments applied in late summer and early fall is very effective in thickening lawns and reducing the opportunity for annual weeds such as crabgrass the following year. To follow this herbicide-free treatment, spread fast-growing perennial ryegrass seed over your lawn with an ordinary drop rotor or rotary spreader at a rate of 3 pounds per 1,000 square feet. Repeat this process at 2 to 3 week intervals 3 times, and by late October, you should have a thick lawn which will be quite weed repellent the following spring when weeds will ordinarily start to invade. Ray, Ray, I know how you feel about this, but Ryan specifically, I know these names like Paul Tukey have come up in conversation before.
You know,
What kind of emotion are we listening out of you right now? How do you feel? Tell me.
how do I feel?
Mhm.
I don't know. Confused is usually when I hear these guys. It's not that I think I get mad or get upset or anything like that. Usually that comes later, but it's typically the fact that what they're saying, and if you really know like what they're advocating for, not necessarily their position, but like the practices, right, to get there, it would be, here's what it would be like. It would be like saying, well, because you have pancreatic cancer, and this is a terrible analogy to use, but I'm just going to use it. I don't care. You have pancreatic cancer. If you ate a all vegetable, all natural diet, that should help. That should help fix things, right? Like it's just it's something that if you were, even a person of common sense or a person of science, like you'd be like, wait, I mean, that might help. I'm not discounting that'll help, but that's not going to fix the issue at hand, right? And so, here with Mr. Tukey's, overseeding methods, and I think something like that, is it going to help? It's not going to hurt, but is it going down the right path? And what are we going to really get out of it? And is that really going to uh, address the issue at hand? Number one, and number two, is it going to create other issues further on down the line? And I don't think that they think about that. I think they think just in terms of what's right here, what's right now. And yeah, there's a whole show we could do on sort of the touring act of these fellows and gals that go around and do all this stuff around the country. It's just interesting bunch for sure.
I hadn't talked about it yet, but one of my favorite part of this articles here is when he gave the soil quality to weed types of weeds you'll experience correlation here, right? That if you have compacted soil, that means that's why you have crabgrass, right? Crabgrass is a symptom of compacted soil. Or dandelions, dandelions are a symptom of low calcium, low pH soils, right? Because certainly everybody that's in Indianapolis that has incredibly high pHs and high calcium soils that deals with just huge influxes of dandelions should be out there spreading lime, right? Which would be the generalized recommendation according to this article here. And this guy, and remember, this guy who's making these generalized recommendations, this is not a nobody, gentlemen. He graduated from the New York Botanical Garden School of Professional Horticulture.
Again, this is the kind of stuff though. He drops pH. They drop these terms, right, to make them sound like an authority. Does this sound familiar, by the way? Does this sound familiar?
Yes.
Somebody trying to establish, somebody trying to establish themselves in an authority that's not, and making recommendations that may or may not be a little bit dubious.
Yes.
Okay.
If only Paul would make a YouTube channel.
Yeah.
Wouldn't that be something?
Here's my here's my question now. New York Botanical Garden, how much fine turf does a botanical garden have? And next question is, what is their budget for maintaining that turf? Because do you know what really burns my butt about these gardener types talking about turf? None of these bastards have ever had to maintain areas of fine turf under budget and on time. Okay? They haven't had to, because they always have the out of, let's throw an entire crew of labor to clean up a mess. Let's top dress it with tons and tons of compost at high expense. I mean, they just have money and labor coming out of their ears that they don't know what to do with. They're under no pressure to where, no, Ray, you are not going to top dress this lawn with compost 4 times a year because that's going to be too expensive, for one thing. Not happening.
Oh boy.
He's just another cog in the wheel of the war against lawns, right? Which is what I'm going to dub, similar to the war against Christmas. I think was something that was in the news a while ago. We're going to hashtag the war against lawns here because of we've gone through it, the Google search results before, and he just wants to play his part and capitalize on it. And I'm sure the New York Botanical Garden School of Professional Horticulture is a wonderful program. I'm sure it's absolutely fabulous, stunning, life-changing experience for him. But what I can promise you is that your recommendations here on creating a lovely, lovely lawn are complete and total garbage. It's worthless. It's not even worthwhile exploring. The only thing to gain out of exploring this is 100% not what to do when attempting to manage a high quality lawn or turfgrass environment. I think you were much kinder in your approach to this, DeMay, than I am. I think this guy should be. No, I'm not going to say that. I think he should not have a voice in this type of scenario. How about that?
He's a lawn expert if you search him. Go ahead.
Yeah, he is. And I think there's a lot of content there for the show after the show with Paul Tukey and his minions. I can't. Ugh. Here's another great one coming out of New York. New York Assembly considers limiting a pesticide linked to bee deaths. Here we go, boys. It's something we've never heard before. Guess what? Neonicotinoids are in front of the New York State Assembly. And they held a hearing on whether the state should strictly limit the use of a chemical and pesticides linked to the die off of honeybees and population declines of other insects and birds. I love this. The Assembly Environmental Committee Chair Steve Englebright said that neonics are a systemic poison and have created a second silent spring, a reference to the seminal book by Rachel Carson. Rachel Carson, nearly 60 years ago, that led to the banning of the pesticide DDT. The neonicotinoids are even more toxic and are at least as dangerous. And we haven't really addressed this. Neonics are
What?
exceptionally insect toxic. Yes, that is where we're going with this. And then they even had the nerve, and this is where it goes from how do we go from dumb to dumber to dumbest in this conversation, in this article? How can we take it one step further? Here we go. Rachel and other environmentalists who testified cite data that links the presence of the chemical to an association with autism in children. Studies estimate that half of all Americans have some level of neonicotinoid pesticides in their bodies. Listen, I am 100% all for figuring out ways to do things differently. And if they work, and we can incorporate them 100%. But to pull shit out of thin air, to make this as charged, as emotionally charged as we possibly can, and to quote this as a Rachel Carson type of expose is complete and total horseshit. This is complete and total horseshit. If this was a balanced, looked at both sides of the article, Ray, you've brought it up before, and to quote you, let's look at Australia. Why is
Yeah,
Australia not
because
suffering from the same issues that we are? And they're not
yeah,
limiting the use of neonicotinoids.
they're not. And in fact, Matt, if these people want to bring up Silent Spring, uh, I don't know if you guys need earmuffs, but guess what I used to do in the 1990s that I know just was like so bad for the bees and the beneficial insects? Guess what I used to do in the 1990s
What?
to
Oh,
treat
no.
Cannabis.
the kind of to treat the kind of pests that a systemic application of a neonicotinoid does now. I used to be spraying up into trees with carbaryl or diazinon or malathion. I used to do that. And, you know, there's something about carbaryl where that is the most destructive and toxic pesticide I can think of regarding bees. Because if you want to wipe out a hornet nest, here's how you do it. Puff a little 7 dust into that hornet nest. Bye bye hornets. They just die from it. I mean, carbaryl, for example, is terrible. Yet on the other hand, I and many of the other landscape people have, embraced, systemic applications of neonicotinoids, and we don't have bee decline here. We don't see it. We just don't see it because instead of, instead of doing what they used to do back in the 1990s, which is, spray, you know, carbaryl 4L up the trees and on the shrubs. They, are a lot more selective nowadays. We're doing, n- imidacloprid drenches or soil injections, which, by the way, when you apply a neonicotinoid to the soil, as long as you are not contaminating foliage or flowers, exposure to bees is extremely limited by that application. On the other hand, I catch somebody foliar spraying a neonicotinoid. And by the way, you know what? This in this article, there's something that I caught. Their proposed restrictions in making an application of a neonicotinoid strictly a reactive application rather than a preventative or proactive
Prophylactic.
application, yeah, a prophylactic application would always, always call for someone making a foliar application of a neonic rather than a soil applied application. And guess what is even more hazardous to bees than a soil based application?
Foliar.
Foliar.
There's a
Or sh-
lot there's a lot here, and it started me down the research wormhole, and we can't get into all of it today, because there's so much here that this particular group cited as fact. And boy, as you start dialing into these, it gets real loosey goosey in redefining the term fact. That's for sure.
Well, here's the key thing in that whole article, Ray, that I found interesting, right, was that they cited data. I go out and cite all the data I want, right, and cherry pick and show you X did
Mm-hmm.
Y, A did B, right? In
Mm-hmm.
this case, right, I think we're looking at another situation where, hey, it's got to be the chemicals' fault, right? It's got to be the chemicals' fault. And, I hate to get on this show every week and sound like we're apologists, right? But I think it's more not necessarily for the chemistry, it's more so for, hey, these are the tools that we have, and you have to understand what these tools, right, are holding up in terms of, not just horticulture and the stuff that looks pretty that we take care of, but, you know, legitimately food production, right? And other crop production
Absolutely.
that takes place in this country, and
Food
and the
production.
economy that this sport supports. Like, it's not just you take this away and everything goes away and everything's all hunky dory. Uh, there's some things that need to be thought out. But I agree with Matt that if you really dive deep into the research, and it's probably been about year and a half, 2 years since I really looked at, and I have no idea what's been out since. But I think that'd be fun. I think that would be a good one to unpack as a group, right? And maybe we can cite some data.
Yeah, exactly. And
Mhm.
I bring this back that if they were to talk about these inane correlations that take place, right? In it reminds me, if anybody remembers when the articles that were coming out about glyphosate is in your breakfast. Do you remember all those headlines
Hmm.
that were on?
Mhm.
And it was a group called the EWG, and what they did was they took the EPA's guidance for what they allowed as an allowable level of glyphosate to be in plants, and then they rewrote their own certification, which was like 1,000 times less. It went from like a certain amount of part per million to a certain amount of part per billion of what they deemed as safe. And then they published these articles that, oh my God, all these foods out here have highly toxic levels of glyphosate. Well, that's according to their definition, not to the EPA's definition. It's the definition that they completely made up, pulled out of thin air with no scientific backing for how they determine that part per billion being safe. It's 100% made up just because it felt good, and it turned these particular articles into something that would garner a lot of attention and a lot of traffic and a lot of conversation and a lot of social credit score, right? And that's kind of in the vein where this starts to lie when they're talking about presenting data. No, they're not. They're not presenting data. They're taking studies that currently exist, manipulating the test parameters to be able to show correlations that may or may not actually exist, but it fits the narrative that they're putting before New York here. And like I said, that would require an entire show to unpack all of that. But at least two of the topics they bring up here, I've researched, and there's actually contradicting information that shows that the tests that were conducted to draw that correlation was conducted inappropriately, and thus why it did not make peer review published. So I'll kind of leave
Yeah,
it at that for right now.
absolutely,
We
Matt.
are we're overtime on this. Let's move on to this week's returns. La 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 la.
I'm back.
I love this because right now we are going to meet the future wives of Ray Ito from the Texas Lawnmower Racing League.
Oh.
Ray, this is where we are going to go play speed dating with you, and I've got a feeling you're going to walk away a polygamous man. It's no secret that certain folks in this world have fully adopted the concept of lawnmower racing, but no one is going at it quite like the Lone Star Mower Racing Association. The LSMRA was recently featured in Texas Monthly since it's perhaps only a Texas organization, and it's entirely badass. This organization is composed of men and women who cruise around the state's finest dirt tracks at 35 to 40 miles an hour. Not exactly as fast as, say, a stock car, but faster than you really want to be going behind the wheel of a lawnmower. And they give a little excerpt here. I'll let you go and read the article itself since it's a good one. There are some women that have been competing on dirt tracks all of their lives. Some work with their hands, others operate bulldozers, yet others are stay-at-home moms. But you know what? They get out there and they race these damn lawnmowers. Gentlemen, week after week, we continue coming back to the topic that is saving lives, inspiring children and women all across America to be more participatory in the fine art of lawnmower racing. This is something I cannot get enough of in my life. I love these people near and dear.
I kind of want to know like what the best stock lawnmower is for this. Like I really want to dive deep into like I was really into cars for a long time. So I kind of want to know, Ray, like what's like
The
the
ideal,
Lingenfelter Corvette of lawnmower, like power to weight ratios, like all that stuff. I really want to know all about this stuff. We got to dive deep.
like is it a John Deere? Is it a Hustler? Is it
Kubota.
a Toro? Or what the heck is it? Because
I'm going Japanese,
to be honest,
Kubota all day long.
Mhm.
You know what
Or
I want to
actually,
see?
no,
I
I'm
want to see the zero turn class. That's what's got to come next. I want to see the zero turns get all
I'm going to throw a
jacked
curveball
up.
if you're going to go JDM, Iseki or Baroness.
Do they have a lawnmower tractor? I'm gonna look it up.
Actually, they got rough area rotaries. Baroness makes rough area rotaries. And
look at this guy.
And I think Iseki makes lawn tractor type equipment too.
Mid mount. Oh yeah, here you go.
Yeah, look at
The
these
GM
right here.
Yeah,
the GM 1700. Look at
that's what I'm
the
talking
Baroness
about.
GM. This is here. I'll throw this to
These are
Jay Pank
nice
here
looking.
real quick.
Yeah, we got
Those
this
are like
radio
That
visual.
was a nice looking. That sounded like a Minnesota nice looking right there.
No, that's a true. You see, I've always maintained that to me, a Baroness is like the Lexus of lawnmowers and turf equipment.
Oh, that's better than a Lexus. I'm gonna say that's more like a Maserati, Rolls Royce.
Actually,
like
if
look at this thing. Look at this thing, Ray.
if we're gonna keep it JDM, I keep on bringing up this car called the Toyota Century, and the Toyota Century is literally a $200,000 hand-built Toyota, and the only people that ride around in it are the Japanese royalty.
I'm gonna find out more about this thing because I know a Baroness dealer here. I want to find out more. Look at how low. Look how low it is. Look at the center of gravity. It's real low on this thing.
The profile on that was just, oh my goodness.
Look at this guy.
Look at this hillside. This is nuts.
He's leaning a little bit. He's leaning a little bit. He's
leaning so hard he's wearing a helmet.
I think that's in some places that's a thing. You got to wear a helmet everywhere you go on the golf course.
I was trying to make it sound
Now we
crazier
got black
than
and
it
white.
is.
Look at this. Can we get sepia tone on this too? Just to
My goodness. I mean, hey,
that's
I would be puckered like you wouldn't believe on that hillside right there. There's no doubt about it. I'd be nervous as
okay.
hell.
So look at that. Okay, so like heights, like even that would freak you out. I know you're against heights or don't like heights, but the hillside would.
I don't like hills. I don't like
Oh, yeah,
hills,
yeah.
Ryan.
Hills. I
I
get
don't
real
like
dizzy on
hills.
hills.
No, I don't enjoy hills because
Damn.
I've been on some hills and it's all cool if you're not in a fall protection harness clamped to the fence or a tree and you
Let's
start
see
slipping.
here. They're running a Kubota engine in there. What are we looking at here? 2-wheel drive. So it'll go in 4-wheel, allegedly. It's hydrostat. It'll go up to 5 miles an hour stock. So we can change out those wheel motors, and I think we got some.
Oh yeah.
Yeah,
Are
we can
you
definitely do some
kidding me?
stuff here.
Yeah, we'll
20
we'll
by
take that bad boy.
21 by 11
right
on
across the
tires
fence.
though. This could be the
It's
torque one. I think
traction,
this might be
sir.
your dragster. That's what we
Do you
need.
think Baroness would sponsor a race team for the Lawnmower Racing League? That's the conversation we need to have. I'm not a driver. I'll tell you that right now. I've totaled way too many cars. In fact, the Honda Pilot just made number 8, I believe, in my arsenal. Rest in peace, Honda Pilot. I loved you.
Oh no, Matt. That's gone bye-bye.
I think you should walk around in a fire suit at all time. That's what you should do.
I should
walk around in a fire suit, just in case.
Speaking of burning things down and growing them back for the better, we have a Western innovator, researcher in his dream team build better turfgrass. Remember who we were talking about with Clint Maddox and Alec Kowalski? Yep. Yeah, the Polish. I told you I'm not good with Polish names. Turns out he has assembled a team of PhD researchers, and again, right here out of Oregon State, go Beavers, that are pioneering new turf grass. I'll say everything from management techniques to chasing down high performance cultivars. And so, anyway, let me just kind of read through here. Kowalski leads a dream team of PhD researchers who are exploring how to grow turf grass with less water, testing which cultivars are disease resistant, experimenting with fungicide alternatives, irrigating with wastewater, documenting which varieties are safest for livestock consumption, and exploring how management practices can impact carbon sequestration. I'm very proud of the team I have. It's truly a world-class team, said Kowalski. One of the things that I thought was interesting here that they had was, and this is what I wanted to learn more about, is that the project uses a carbon capturing device that tracks how much carbon plants absorb while photosynthesizing and explores how management practices impact carbon storage. One of the most unknown advantages of plants that of turf grasses that I feel is not talked about enough and should be, and it might be out of fear of just unknowing. It is the carbon sequestration rate and the photosynthetic efficiency of turf grasses, right? You're talking about a significant amount of leaf surface area that can photosynthesize and take our atmospheric carbon dioxide and convert it into useful energy within the plant and ultimately store a lot of that back in the ground as, well, soil organic carbon, right? We have one of the most efficient carbon CO2 mitigators at our disposal. And it's being talked about and regarded in our space, in our environment, as a detriment, as a total detriment. We need to get rid of them. Get rid of lawns. They're a disgrace. They're toxic cesspools. They're eliminating bees. They're eliminating insects. Whoever is planting a lawn is a selfish asshole. And that is the neighbor you need to point at and go throw glyphosate in his lawn to make sure he never. Well, don't do that. Throw salt and vinegar in his yard to make sure he never has the opportunity to grow grass again. Again, just Google lawns in America and read the top search results that you get out of it. It's the most embarrassing thing you've ever seen. However, thank you, Oregon State and the Beef team that Kowalski is. I'm never going to say it right. that Alec has put together here is showing and quantifying the carbon sequestration rate of these plants. And that right there is groundbreaking, earth-shattering, in my opinion, towards the reshaping, redevelopment, and defining the importance of turfgrass in America. These guys
Okay.
freaking get it.
No, they totally get it because I see the side effect from this push towards synthetic turf and non-turf based ground covers. And you know what one of the initial effects of that kind of a landscape is, Matt, is you turn urban areas into what's called heat islands. And you know what a heat island is? A heat island is a place where, due to your ground cover and other microclimate type factors, it is hotter than surrounding areas. And one of the big comparisons would be an area that is composed of actual green, maintained, and irrigated turf grass versus an area that's composed of something else. And oh, by the way, guys, guess how I can tell if a turf area is not getting enough water? Guess how I can tell?
Smells
I feel
funny.
like there's a trick in here. Yeah, where are you going with this, Ray?
Okay, the way I
Wilting
can
grass?
tell, no,
Footsteps?
the way I can tell is that I feel the heat coming off of the area.
Yeah.
It's hot. It feels hot. I mean, versus if the grass is properly irrigated, then I don't feel that temperature differential. You know, because I literally can detect a couple degrees difference in temperature.
I think what you're finding though is that at Oregon State and several other places here around the country now that we had this discussion about turf truth last week and all this is that there are places that are investing right into
Mm.
the people that are going to bring about not just change and all that kind of stuff, but just furthering the science and the discipline, right? And that is the most important thing that we could possibly invest in at this point in turf. You're, like I said before, you're leaving a vacuum. Without doing that, you're leaving a vacuum for people like Mr. Tukey and some of our other YouTube and Facebook
YouTube?
experts to
Yes.
step into that void and fill it with whatever they want. I mean, legitimately,
Buy
like
my
haven't we?
shit. Yeah.
Buy my not even buy my shit, but just buy my argument, right? My
Or
emotionally
buy,
heartstring tugging argument that is going to change the mind of people who really probably are either not informed, misinformed, or are like, I never had an opinion on that, but now that you put it like that, I'm kind of pissed off and I don't like lawns. And that's
yeah, now I don't like
truly
grass. Yeah.
and so this type of influence, it needs to be stemmed. And I think the only way you're going to stem it is through good information coming from very, very smart people who continue to ask the question, well, why? And go find the answer. And so that's what it's going to be at the grassroots level, pun intended completely, for consumers and professionals alike. But
Wow.
those folks need, oh yeah, absolutely. Yeah. But also from the university researchers that are going to give them the information that they need and be able to study this stuff in more detail. So eat shit, Paul. Sorry, I had to say it.
Good work from the Beef team there in Oregon State.
Beef
And I really, yeah, man, the Beef team will save the planet. There's no doubt about it. So keep those names in the list of positive voices in the turfgrass industry right now, the ones we continue to bring up over and over again. Add to that Clint Maddox and Emily Braithwaite and Alec Kowalski and all his whole team here, just absolutely killing it. And man, I'm so proud that these guys represent the turfgrass industry because we need more of them, and we need people to think this way, and hopefully they can continue to receive the money necessary to keep doing the work they're doing in the areas that, they're working right now. Um, Aside from that, we'll go ahead and move on to the green team to follow up the beef team. And this is the making of New York's $150 million cannabis campus. And what I thought was particularly special about this, we'll get into. About 60 miles north of Manhattan at the foothills of the Ramapo Mountains, past a few cow pastures, stands the red brick buildings of the old Mid Orange Correctional Facility in Warwick, New York. That was back in 2011. 10 years later, the 40 acres of what was penitentiary farmland is now the new home of Green Thumb Industries, one of the nation's largest cannabis companies, and it's a $150 million cultivation and manufacturing site. By 2023, GTI's cannabis campus will start producing tens of thousands of pounds of marijuana, millions of TH-infused gummies and vape cartridges to fill the shelves of its dispensaries throughout the Empire State. Boys, we have ripped down a prison, and you know what we're going to put in its place? A damn
That's
weed
the best
farm.
part.
What
That's the
is that
best
not
part.
hilarious?
A damn grow facility. And you know what the irony is, Matt?
What's that?
Up until I want to say a year or two ago, having anything to do with marijuana would probably have you end up in a facility like what they ripped down for at least 5 to 10 years, if
Yeah,
not going
no
to
doubt
the
about it.
Fed, if not going to the
No
Fed
doubt about
for
it.
it. Yeah.
And I love the market statistics here. Right now, the top 5 markets in the United States and the economic impact. Well, this is just the economy they contribute there, not even the economic impact. California is $4.6 billion. Colorado's $2.1 billion. Washington is $1.4 billion. Florida is $1.2 billion. Oregon is $1 billion. In 4 years, in 4 years, they're saying California will be a $7 billion industry. New York will be a $3.8 billion cannabis industry. It's amazing. This is, and listen, I'm all for individual freedoms. I think that is something I have made absolute clear from day one since we've started doing this. I'm not a marijuana or cannabis user in any way, shape, or form. I don't like to slow down. That's not my thing. I don't have time to slow down. I'm 100 miles an hour from the moment I wake up to the moment I go to bed. That's why I get mad at myself when I have too many adult beverages. I don't like to go slow. My point is that under no circumstance whatsoever should this continue to be federally legal, in my opinion, with the amount of economic influence it brings when we're talking about this kind of billions of dollars. And if this provides additional research dollars that can be funded back into agriculture in some form, shape, or fashion for new discoveries, new technologies, new entrepreneurs to be able to come out, apply their brains, and discover new things related to plant technology. Hell yeah. Bring it on. Bring it on.
Smoke weed every day.
Well timed. Well timed. Hey,
Very well.
here's my thing, and I know that there's been a ton of advancements in this side of it, right? But I also wonder the same things of what you're saying, Matt, on the research side of a lot of places have not been able to do a ton of work on the research side. A lot of this stuff has been industry research and industry backed to find out. But I'm really curious of once this comes off of federal regulation and it really gets opened up to wide scale independent research, how fast and how far can we go? Right, that'll be the interesting thing to me with this particular crop, and so I'm excited for it. I'm excited to see what happens. Same thing, not a user, not a consumer, but horticulture is horticulture, right? Growing plants is fun, and if some people can take some joy out of it, right? Whether it's a nicely mowed fairway want to raise fantastic lawns out there in Hawaii, or somebody rolling up and smoking, what we're going to do. Whatever, man.
You know,
We're just like the assistant movie theater manager. We're just here to provide recreation and entertainment. That's it.
absolutely, because I have to preface this with I have never partaken in my entire life, but agronomy is agronomy to me, so I would gladly support the industry as well. I'd gladly do it. And this is a plant that has an extremely high lethal dose. In other words, you'd have to consume so much of it to even cause harm to yourself. And long before you get there, I think feeling weirded out and sick would deter you from even getting close to what would actually be harmful to you. So I too, I am not in favor of, making this federally illegal. And oh, by the way, do you know what curtails just about all research regarding the medicinal and economic benefits of marijuana? The fact that marijuana is considered a Schedule 1 substance on the list of controlled substances. And
Yep.
let me explain what a Schedule 1 substance is. Schedule 1 is even more restricted than cocaine or marijuana or more morphine. And what that Schedule 1 designation means is that there are no economic, social, or medical benefits associated with that substance. And furthermore, Schedule 1 denotes that there is a high potential for addiction. That is what earns a substance a Schedule 1 designation, according to the DEA. And I'm not seeing in my logical brain how naturally occurring marijuana ticks those boxes. Now we want to talk about the synthesized, cannabinoid, analogs like what is that stuff called? That bath salts or that stuff nicknamed spice, where people
They're eating people's
run-
faces.
yeah.
What's for dinner? Oh,
That-
I don't know. A half a gram of spice in my neighbor's jugular.
Yeah, exactly. Because I have never seen anybody do anything that I would consider off or crazy after they smoked one. Okay, I've never seen anybody do anything particularly off or crazy. Never.
You ever gnawed a leg down to the fibula? If you ain't done it, you need to try. Get you a couple toots of this spice in and just go to town there, cowboy.
So you get that, you get that, and you get down to canes, and the caniac is like maybe a couple toes and maybe a few nipples or something like that, with a sweet tea. Wash it down with a sweet tea. Get
Exactly.
you some. And I got that at Zaxby's.
A couple toes and a few nipples for dinner. That's got to be it.
Yeah, that's got to be it. Because so I just don't see that, the prohibition making any kind of sense, because the actual prohibition against marijuana was based on racial and economic prejudices. Because for the longest
like
time,
them damn hippies.
No, actually, they
Bunch
didn't
of
like
hacky
those.
sack, granola eating, Birkenstock wearing, long haired, Grateful Dead listening, damn stinky hippies.
Exactly. No, actually, long before that, Matt, it was
Shout out, John Borden. What's up, big dog?
no.
Love you, brother.
We don't like them poor brown people from down below the border. That's where the prohibition came from.
Yeah.
That's
Oh, yeah.
exactly where
There's
that
no doubt about it.
because I'm going to tell you,
Ray.
if the first people to partake
Right.
of marijuana on a wide scale were actually the white upper middle class counterculture people, the feds wouldn't have clamped down on marijuana like how they did. And here's my problem with laws: it's so hard for a bad law to get erased off the books. It's hard for a bad law to be erased off the books, guys. So that's why, you're asking me in previous shows, have I ever known, for example, an instance where, like, when the EPA takes action against a pesticide, it gets unbanned? I've only known to see that happen one time, and one time alone. But other than that, it seems like they ban it for one use case and then they keep on moving on to the next use cases, and next thing you know, it's all gone and it's not coming back.
Well, I didn't mean for this to turn into the great debate over marijuana legalization, but it's somehow we ended up there. But I did want to point out that I just thought that was an absolute a beautiful, beautiful stroke of repurposing what once was a prison is now a marijuana grow up. Gentlemen, do we have anything else that y'all would like to add before we close out the show?
Is Kane still open?
Oh, Raising Cane's too late.
Yeah, that's what I was saying. Caniac.
The most substandard chicken tender in all of Kentucky. Listen, I've got to try one outside of Kentucky because I'm convinced everybody that keeps bringing up Raising Cane's talks about the long lines there, how good it is. Everyone coincide. Everything you said, Ryan, is what I hear from everyone else. The only one I've ever had opportunity to eat at is in Owensboro, Kentucky, and so I shan't base my entire opinion of Raising Cane's against that one location.
There's one in Knoxville.
Yeah.
What?
There's one in Knoxville.
There's a Raising Cane's here? J Pink, sir? Good looking.
Cumberland Ave.
We're going.
Oh, it's on campus? No
We're
wonder
going.
Located in University of Tennessee.
Oh, I gotta go inside. Oh, where is this? Is this in the student center or something? Oh man, it is. I'm not going there. Oh, wait, no, it's not. No, it's not. It's over there by Chipotle's. Okay, I can do this. I can do this. I don't want to go hang it. Listen, I don't want to be the 35-year-old.
You don't still have your
guy.
student. You don't have your student ID still?
No, I don't want to be the 35-year-old guy going into the Raising Cane's on campus in the student center, high-fiving guys. And be like, dude, are you Frank the Tank? I'll be like, no. No, that was another lifetime ago.
Y'all got any port?
You know what? I don't think I can safely set foot on the University of Hawaii campus anymore.
because your nickname is Frank the Tank?
No. It's because I'm known as the spray guy.
Oh, yeah.
The granola eaters will...
Oh, the lawn boy.
The lawn boy.
Yeah, no, the granola eaters and the organic fruit grower groups are going to crucify me. I mean...
Lucky for you, Ray, you can take the same stance that I do and never have to step foot into another campus building again. Gentlemen, we're going to wrap this up. Ray, Ryan, thank you for tuning in. We will catch y'all on Thursday. Where we have extra special guests. We're bringing in one of the DIY guys. We've got Mr. Yard Envy is going to be on, and I'm super excited about that because we're working with a blank slate here, and we get to build this guy up, bring him down, and then build him back up again before it's all over with. So stick around for that. That's going to be a ton of fun working with someone who is a new entry into the market space. All right, everybody. We'll see you on Thursday. Take it easy.